Welcome everyone to the Cleveland HubSpot User Group virtual event. This one featuring marketing and sales alignment. I'm Sandy Young. If you're not familiar with me, I'm the marketing director at PR 2020. I'll be moderating today. While of course we're sad that we can't be together, especially for all the new faces, we're still excited to bring you some actionable content from home. So of course, thanks for joining us despite everything. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can just pop them into that chat screen at the bottom that we've been using, and we'll address all of those at the end of the session. And then of course we can prompt you to unmute if you'd prefer to ask Evan yourself. And with that, I'll turn it over to today's speaker, Evan Dean. He is the Principal Channel Consultant at HubSpot. He's coming to you from Boston, and he's going to give you guys an inside look at how to get sales and marketing on the same page with HubSpot. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Evan.
All right. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all. I guess I was going to say be here, but I'm just where I've been. I'm at my house in Somerville, Massachusetts. I think like many of you. I'm glad you guys are able to join me. I'm glad it's Cinco de Mayo. It's my favorite holiday. So if you have a mark, please join me there. I want to give a quick shout out here to the PR 2020 team for putting this on. Really wish that I could have been in Cleveland. Last time I was there, I went to the Jack and hit it kind of big at the casino. So I'm eager to get back in town. Honestly, I'd love to be anywhere besides my house right now, but I think we're all doing the right thing, staying at home. Again, shout out to the PR 2020 team. Great team, fantastic group of marketers. They put on an awesome event here. It's a shame we weren't all in person. I think I'll maybe run their card a little bit. I don't know if they're planning on telling you guys this, but they get a stipend from HubSpot for these events. And they actually reached out to HubSpot to make sure they were okay with taxes and all, because they're planning to donate that to their local food bank. So really great marketers thinking about other people at this time. Awesome community. So really shout out to you guys. Fantastic group.
And real quick, I'll jump in on the HubSpot end. So HubSpot made the choice to still provide the stipend, even though it wasn't going to be in person. So while we brought the idea to the table of giving it to the food bank, it is HubSpot that is making that possible. And they have, as a partner, I can tell you they have gone out of their way to help their partner agencies in a number of ways financially. And I think it's just a testament to HubSpot and the kind of company they are that they keep doing these sorts of things. So thanks to Evan and HubSpot as well.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I thought that was just amazing to see in a time like this where, a lot of people are tightening up and keeping, playing things close to the chest. It's awesome to see some folks thinking about other people out there. As far as me presenting today goes, first of all, please, if I have any technical issues, please forgive me. I hope everything goes smoothly. But I will say that I'm very comfortable being interrupted. Don't worry about throwing off my flow or anything like that. Everybody ask me questions, stop me. We'll handle it on the fly. I'm very comfortable. I think we'd love to do that because, we want to have as much of a discussion here as possible. And then this deck I'm presenting, you're gonna have to watch it a bit because there's a lot of wild stuff going on here. I've loaded in a lot of animation. So keep a heads up there, and let's hope it all goes smoothly. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And hopefully that works as intended. Can you guys see me here on my first slide?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's go, right? I mentioned I've got a lot of animation in this one. And we'll kick off there. So a lot of fun stuff going on in the deck. What we're talking about today, though, is I think a topic that is near and dear to a lot of our hearts, whether we're in the sales team or we're on the marketing side of things. It's this concept of sales and marketing alignment, which is really tricky. And for a lot of us, it means a lot to our businesses. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself here with a bit of a somber headshot there. Again, Sandy gave me a great intro there, the PR 2020 team, but Evan Dean, I'm a principal channel consultant at HubSpot. I have been at HubSpot for 7 years, which is, I think it makes me the oldest person at HubSpot at this point. It's like me and Halligan. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. You can see me there. I've got the shortened URL there, LinkedIn/EvDean. And oh yeah, I chose this headshot, which is it's a little much, it's a little serious. But I was just to open us up with a funny kind of story. That's my headshot for acting. And if you have a very keen eye, you will see me in the Little Women movie. I'm an extra in that movie, holding the plate of sausages when Saoirse Ronan's character first goes to a bar. My friends managed to see me. My mother caught me on that 1 second, but I'm in there, and that's why I have kind of that very serious-looking headshot. To get us going here, we're talking about this rift that sometimes happens between us on the marketing side and on the sales side of things. I like to do this metaphor like, some of us are from Mars, some of us are from Venus. I think that reference is a bit dated, but the idea is that there's this rift between us. We're working on communication, and there's a lot of space. Pause for a second. Looks like Carly's ripping a photo. And this is what we're trying to divide this. We're trying to get a little closer. It can lead to a lot of conflict. When we think about sales and marketers, there's often this concept of sort of being at odds with each other. And I have here a real live quote from an actual sales rep, which is, I hate marketers because they always get in my way. You can tell it's real because I've attributed it to an actual sales rep. But what we're thinking about here is that there is some negativity here. And what I want to try to talk to you about is some practical items that we can start to do to align ourselves a little bit better. In this presentation, and a general concept that I want to try to get across is the idea of having a sales and marketing alignment meeting. I'm talking about some concepts here, some practical things you can do to align yourself a little bit better between sales and marketing, but then also setting up this concept of a sales and marketing meeting. Because when these two things don't work well, it costs us money, but we can start to get a little friendlier. So this is actually a real quote. This one is from Hunter. This is from our VP of sales at HubSpot. And this starts to show what it's like to work at a company where things are getting a little better aligned, sales thinking about marketing. And sometimes that can feel a little awkward, but we're in it together. As much as it's going to be awkward and there's going to be some weird hugs here, we'll try to get together. Because companies that do have strong marketing alignment see themselves positioning growth, and they're able to achieve their goals much more effectively. You can see I'm referencing some data here driven by the Aberdeen Group. But I think it's no surprise to us that when sales and marketing are working together better, everything works better. You have a happier work environment, and it drives revenue. So when we're thinking about these two groups, there's sort of the two sides of this equation. There's salespeople who have traditionally really been able to influence prospects, and they push a lot of force into it. As we think about this concept of the flywheel at HubSpot, we think about salespeople positioning force. They're able to take prospects and move them into customers. But that's not necessarily where all the interactions happen for a prospect. The majority of people have actually really have their minds fairly well made up when they go to talk to a salesperson. And that's not to say that a salesperson is not integral in this process, which they absolutely are. But what we want to start to recognize here is that both parties really play an important role in bridging that gap between someone doing research and becoming a customer for us. So the concept that we're working on here is smarketing, right? Sales and marketing coming together. So let's talk about some practical stuff we can do to try to bring these two groups together. And this is going to be a big concept for us, which is trying to bring alignment through measurement. I want to give you some practical examples of things that we look at, how we can do it, and some examples of maybe how we can find this data. The reason we care about this is because of the cost of acquisition. So as we look at this, we're starting to break down cost of acquisition of a lead, cost of acquisition of a visitor. And if you think about this, in this scenario that I'm giving you here, where we spend $1,000 to get 500 website visitors, we've got a 5% customer to lead conversion rate. If we change that from 5% to 6%, our cost of customer acquisition is reduced by $300. So by focusing on having better alignment between sales and marketing, and we're thinking about that 60% of the sale that marketing gets involved in, we're really starting to push the numbers here. The cost of acquisition can be changed significantly. And we think about sales, right? It's never been this kind of linear process, right? You know, this example of someone just happens to be in the neighborhood, they drop in and immediately want to buy a sweater. That's not the case either. There's a lot of research that happens here. And when we think about a salesperson's initiative on this, they're going to show you that it's a much more complicated system. This is where we start to think about this more holistic view. When we think about how we treat our customers post-purchase, and how they can evangelize for us and how that influences additional awareness. It's this closed loop concept that we work with that is starting to push us towards the flywheel. You know, there's this infinite loop of repurchase, interest, desire, how our customers and the actual process that they go in with our sales team or prior to meeting our sales team can influence additional leads and customers. So when I talk about measuring everything, I have some examples for you here. So what I'm going to take you through is a couple examples of things that I think we want to focus on. I've got a few different examples here, but I'm going to focus into a few different examples. Thinking about things like lead rotation. And when we're thinking about that, we want to think about close lost or deal rejected reasons. And then coming over to the marketing side of things, we're looking at data like who's working our leads? How much effort are they putting them into that? So that's this work percentage concept that I want to talk about. And really at the center of all this is this idea of kind of a mutual respect and balance. I want to show you a couple things that marketing can do to try to respect sales activities and a couple things that sales is going to do to give more data back to marketing. So we think about this, the reason I'm focusing on measurement is because we can all have good models, but if we're not measuring it effectively, we're not necessarily going to grow better than our competition. So when we think about this, we're generating leads. Is marketing working them, or is sales working them? Or is, when the sales team has leads from marketing, do they feel like they're seeing the quality in them? So some sales numbers we can look at for that. My sales numbers. So as we're looking at sales numbers, I want to focus on this area in the middle, so qualified leads in that consideration stage. This is that transition between marketing and sales, kind of that handoff process. And often what we're seeing at this point is like this animosity. So, you know, the sales team thinking that their leads kind of suck. The marketing is a waste of money. And then marketing thinking that leads really isn't giving enough effort there to follow up on their leads. That's really subjective information. But we can look in and get some objective information in there to try to really make that a more reasonable conversation. So contrary to what sales might think, marketers really care about your leads. Here's a piece of data that I want you guys to look at. How many leads did sales actually work in a given month? So this is one of the first data points that I kind of want to pause on. And we're thinking about this in the concept of having a sales and marketing alignment meeting. If you're planning to have a sales and marketing alignment meeting, so if you are in an internal group or you maybe work cross-functionally with a marketer working with a sales team, I really want to strongly suggest that you each, kind of have the courage and the determination to go and give yourself this meeting. And in that meeting, you want to look at a shared dashboard of data. You know, you're going to look at things like MQLs generated each month, customers converting, traffic, the kind of marketing data. But then on the sales side of things, we want to start to look at this to hold each other accountable. The first data I want to look at is how many of my leads has the sales team worked? And as you start to look at this data, you can work together to determine what are your goals on that. You know, I think for many e-commerce companies, this example that I've pulled data from, we expect leads to have worked at least 50% of the leads that we've generated. And you're going to determine that number for your own business. So tracking that data, one of the specific ways that you can track data, and this is a point that I would say we want to include in our sales and marketing alignment meeting, is track the opportunities created from MQLs. That's going to kind of hold sales accountable, right? Like, are you working my leads? Determine for your own business working with the sales team, or if you're a salesperson, working with a marketing team, what are your expectations for the number of leads worked? What is the percentage there? If you're doing this stuff in HubSpot, you can use the contact funnel report to start to report on your conversion rates from lead to MQL to opportunity. Again, reminding you that opportunity is created automatically if you're using the deals tool in HubSpot, but this is data that you can use in whatever system you want. You know, if you're talking about Salesforce, then you're going to be looking at opportunities actually created. In HubSpot, it's deals. Deals affect the lifecycle stage of opportunity. So we want to start tracking this data, right? Keeping track of from MQL or from lead to opportunity created and MQL to opportunity. Another tip that I have, so that's talking about keeping the sales team kind of honest on this. Are you leveraging this data? Are you working our leads? Making that kind of subjective argument objective. The other thing we want to look at is marketing giving us the leads that we want? You know, let's try to make that a data-driven discussion. So to that point, I want you to leverage lead rejected reasons. If you want to create this in HubSpot, we're talking about going in, creating a property and a custom property for lead rejected reason. Without looking at the settings too much, I want to give you this example because I think these are some good examples of lead rejected reason for you to think about. Any system that you're using, whatever CRM you might have, you want to do this at the contact level, at the lead level, and start to give feedback going back to marketing for why we're not going to work a lead. Sometimes stuff is just going to be about the business itself, like they're outside of that sales region. You know, we can't service them. Sometimes it's about the person you're talking to. You know, maybe they're missing authority. They're not ready to buy yet, in which case you have these kind of bad timing deal rejected reasons. I've given you an example here to think about how marketing can really use this data. Pretty easy to imagine though, right? If I get, as a marketer, a lead rejected reason that says bad timing, wait 6 months or wait a year, well, I want to put them in a nurturing plan that's going to work with them over the course of 6 months or that year, depending on what data I got back. If I have a sophisticated system like that, right, if I can build nurturing and automation around it, otherwise it's going to be pretty straightforward, right? I'm going to follow up with them again in 6 months. So it's about holding each other accountable here by having actionable information to use. I love deal rejected reasons, just like we like closed loss reasons. If you're thinking about how you want to create these, think about what data you might actually action as a marketer. Again, this is a way for sales to give feedback to marketing. The other one we want to think about is activity. So holding the sales team accountable for the activity that they work on our MQLs. Now, this data is actually something that we pulled from the HubSpot example. I've looked in at our e-commerce team and seen where they've actually started to see a fluctuation in the effort that a salesperson puts in versus the forecast. So I can show you that. And to kind of explain this graph that we're looking at, what this is looking at a salesperson's activity against the forecast for that deal over time. And to break it down for you, what we see is that for our high value prospects, we see an inflection point right at 7, right? So around 7 attempts or activities, we start to see that the forecast has gone up and our chance to close that deal pretty much levels out. You know, it does increase at 9, 10, 11, but thinking about like return on investment versus effort and time, HubSpot sees this inflection point at 7 attempts on a call. And when I'm thinking on a prospect, when I'm thinking about attempts, what I'm talking about is calls, meetings, tasks, outreach. I'm talking about a salesperson's activity on a lead. This is another point of data that I'm giving you as like an example, right? For HubSpot in our e-commerce space, this is 7 attempts on a lead. For you, it might be very different. If you have a long business cycle, you may be looking at like 10, 11, 12, 13 attempts. But what I want to start to highlight here is, first of all, start to track this data. When you as a marketer are having a discussion with sales, try to come to an agreement on this number. I'm sure that any good sales manager is going to have an expectation for their sales team in their activity. If you as a marketer can start to present that data to them in a way that makes it accessible and effective and data-driven, showing the number of attempts broken out against forecast, then you can start to, again, make this a really objective conversation. This is data-driven. It's no longer that discussion of, sales thinks marketing doesn't create good leads. Well, or in this case, marketing thinks sales doesn't do their work on their leads. Well, we're going to define how much work the expectation is on those leads and have that kind of back and forth with one another. You can think about this data as that balance of how many MQLs did marketing generate this month? How many leads did marketing create for us? Okay, well, we can track that. We always track that. Let's start thinking about, has sales done their activity on the leads that marketing has generated? Let's balance that out. If you want to look at this in HubSpot, we have this data, right? You can use activity-based data. If you have a salesperson working inside the HubSpot tools, we can connect their email inbox. We can give them the ability to schedule meetings and their tasks and their calls through HubSpot. And we can go both ways on this, right? Do we track a salesperson's activity effectively? Cool. Sorry, guys. I just want to see if we had any questions. All right, the marketing numbers. So we've talked, it's really easy. I know we have a lot of marketers here. I've been talking a lot about, is sales putting in all their effort? Well, let's talk about the marketing numbers. We're going to have some basic stuff that we're tracking on marketing. And again, imagining our sales and marketing alignment meeting, yes, we're going to have leads, visits, customers. Let's talk about some of the other data in here, though. So marketing qualified leads. I think this is a cornerstone of a good marketing program, is having a definition for your marketing qualified leads. And I use this word a lot, but we want this to be objective. We want this to be specific, data-driven information. So for those in the room, right, a lot of marketers don't know how they define marketing qualified lead. Usually when I'm presenting to an audience, I'll ask people like, hey, do you know how to define marketing qualified lead? Doesn't work so well on Zoom, so I'll skip to the cut on this one. A lot of us don't know how we're defining marketing qualified leads. So I just want to make you all comfortable there. If you were thinking like, oh, I don't know how I define MQL, well, you're not alone. Marketing qualified leads, in my opinion, and all the successful processes that I've seen, this is objective data. So at a basic line, we can do this based on our really big boxes that get checked by a prospect. Have they visited our pricing page? Have they opened a few of our emails? Have they visited the site in so many days? So for those of you that are trying to get your basic MQL definition going, I would say try to just get down the basic stuff. And you're thinking about, well, what leads should sales look at? First of all, that's what MQL is kind of about. But then based on the data, what leads is marketing confident in saying these are good leads? These should at least be considered based on our data. We're trying to help our salespeople here. For a lot of us, that's based on location, maybe job title, how they may answer some of our forms. But it's probably actually a higher level than that. It's just, have they completed our forms at all? Have they been on our website? For those of you who are trying to get a little more advanced here, I'm a big fan of using lead score to inform MQL. So what you want to do when you're thinking about informing MQL with lead score is you want to start with that same definition, right? Have they been to our site? Have they completed our forms? Are they in an area that we service? So my basic MQL definitions, and then just take that and apply it to your lead score. If you want to have a lead score of 100 equals MQL, that's a really common thing. I'll use it as an example. Well, make sure that they're in your target location, they visited your site, and they completed one of your forms, adds up to 100 points. That's kind of your basic way to get started with lead score and setting MQL. But while we're here, I'll give you some tips, right? Some of my favorite things to do with lead score. Yes, we do use lead score to define MQL. You can get really complicated with it, and certainly marketers love to. But we also want to use lead score, not just to define MQL, but as a helpful tool for our sales team to prioritize their leads. So of course, they're going to work with the leads who are the most interested based on things like how many emails they've opened, their job title, how many times they visited our website. But there's also this concept in sales of trying to work with leads while they are active, right? Trying to get on top of the hot leads. So with that in mind, I want you to think about leveraging time-based rules to prioritize your best leads. So if your marketer is using lead score and you're presenting that to your sales team, I want you to think about things like has visited the website in the last 5 days, has opened an email in the last 15 days. You know, we always think about website visits and email opens, but with a lot of these systems, certainly on HubSpot, you can control that based on time-based requirements. So you can automatically bring your salespeople's hottest leads right up to the top for them and make sure they're working those leads. Another one of my favorite tips is trying to use kind of the passive data, the stuff that we get from our analytics tools. Again, I'm thinking about HubSpot here. In HubSpot, we do have information about what country someone came from, what state they're in, the time when they visited the website. So we can use that data to very quickly rule out and get to the bottom of our like basic lead score and definitions. You know, if you only service the United States, Canada, well, you can quickly define that by IP and use that kind of analytic-based data. They didn't have to fill out a form to tell you that. They didn't have to take some action. You just got that based on their analytics to assure that you are reaching out to and servicing your best prospects right away. So once we have MQL defined, I want to go and think about how does marketing respect sales actions. So we're presenting sales with our MQLs. The expectation there then being that they look at those, they review them, and for the qualified leads, they mark them as SQL, sales qualified lead. And then from there, they work into opportunity and so on. One of my favorite things to think about as a marketer is how do we kind of buy credibility with the sales team and make our marketing work really well by respecting the actions that they're taking. So I want to show you this example. It's a very specific, kind of tricky example. But what I've done here is I'm looking at the suppression list. So what stops a workflow from firing? And I've stopped this workflow from firing whenever a salesperson has marked a lead as sales qualified lead. So this is really important for a lot of us, right? Marketers will send out emails through automation on behalf of a salesperson. So an email is going to come out. It looks like it's coming from Keith, but it's actually automation and the marketer is sending it out. And one of the worst things we can do is if we rotated that lead to Keith and now he's actually emailing that person, is they get an email from Keith, but it's really our marketing automation. And then they get a real email from actual Keith, and one hand's not watching the other, and we look foolish here. So from a practical perspective, I will suppress my workflows by sales qualified lead, then with the expectation that my sales team is working my leads and following up with them. Hey guys, I'm going to turn off my workflows because you're following up with my leads. I have that respect for you. The expectation then being that you're following up with those leads. This is a great way to kind of buy some credibility. This is one of those things that's sort of at that core of sales and marketing alignment is, you know, respecting the work that other people do for one another and making your experience to your prospects better. When we're talking about sales and marketing alignment, the other thing I want to bring up is not just the data, because we've talked so much about, yes, there's leads and traffic and customers and so on. And we've talked a lot about what a salesperson should be doing. What are their efforts getting put in there? Another thing that I want you to bring into your sales and marketing alignment meeting is just, what is marketing doing, right? Are we creating new assets for you? What's the timetable look like? So yes, hey, we've created new offers in our content library. We've got new landing pages. There's CTAs available for you. Bringing this into the sales and marketing alignment meeting, first of all, just means that sales is aware of the stuff that you've created for them. They know that they've got a new ebook coming, so when they talk to a prospect about it, they can show that to them. or they can tell them that they'll send it to them. It's also a good way just to show the effort that we're doing for one another. You know, what is marketing doing? Well, we're creating all these assets. Be aware of them. Make sure that you know the stuff's coming up. You know, create a email that includes upcoming offers to send to your sales team. Here's the new stuff we've created. Here's all the assets that we've created for you. Thinking about what you might want to share with your prospects and your opportunities. It goes both ways. You know, it's about showing them what you're doing. It's also about making sure that they have easy access to this stuff. So upcoming offers, having that discussion in your sales and marketing alignment meeting, and then doing it via email so that they have those links and assets available to them. Make sure that people know what you're doing. If you are launching new offers, you can make sure that that content is available on a website page or via email. The kind of thing that shows up in our sales and marketing alignment meeting needs to be available to our salespeople. When we have an SLA in place, right? So if we have expectations about how many leads and MQLs the marketing team is creating, or how many activities and opportunities the sales team creates from our MQLs, companies that have an active SLA in place, they experience greater growth. This is one of those things that I really encourage you all to do. You know, we're talking about aspirational stuff here. Having this meeting, you don't necessarily know where you're going to get all that data from. You don't necessarily know everything that's going to be in your SLA right away. But if you aspire to create that and you work together to try to create something, it's better to create it, have it, maybe miss it, than not have it at all. Companies that do this and try to create a marketing SLA, they experience greater growth. It also means that for us on the marketing team, you're able to get better budget, of course. Greater budget for your marketing and for your sales team. Higher demand for salespeople. So when you avoid that confusion by looking at a shared dashboard of data, think about what data that you want to have in there, like marketing's content that they've generated, their numbers, or the activity from a salesperson. It means that you're finally getting on the same page and starting to have an objective conversation about this stuff. I really do believe in a sales and marketing meeting, and I think it'd be really effective for a business. From this meeting, or from this presentation, I have some key takeaways for you guys. I think that a lot of this stuff is aspirational, as I mentioned. You can't always do it right away. But if you go to the table and ask to have this marketing meeting and think about what data you want to have in there based on some of my examples, you're going to find a way to get that data. You know, once you know that you need it and you see value in it, you'll find a way to report on it. If you're using the HubSpot system, a lot of data is very available for you. I would also really encourage you to think about an SLA, which relates to expectations for marketing and expectations on sales activity. From there, you know, thinking about it, measuring the entire funnel. So we talk so much about activity, leads, and MQLs. Well, let's talk about opportunities and activity from a sales perspective. And then find those ways to respect the customer lifecycle. You know, when someone is an SQL, you know, make sure that sales knows that you respect that. Find ways to react to it. You don't have to load in new activities for them or make their job harder. You can use the stuff that they're already using, like moving them to opportunity, to make your marketing smarter and make the experience for the prospect a little bit better. Thanks, everybody. There's my thoughts on a sales and marketing alignment meeting. If you all have questions or anything you want to talk about, I guess we'd open it up, right?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, this would be a great time for that. I know this was super helpful for me. This was a great presentation, so we really appreciate it. I guess my first big question for you is, in your experience, do you have any recommendation on kind of the agenda to set for a sales and marketing meeting if you're just kicking it off with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So the agenda, I'm always trying to keep agendas really high level. But I think what you want to do is, first of all, just to set the stage for the agenda, the goal of it is to drive alignment. Try to assure that marketing is providing valuable leads and content to the sales team, and supporting the sales team, and that the sales team is meeting their numbers and getting activity to drive their revenue and ensure that they get their compensation. You should have the expectation to review a shared dashboard of reports. On that dashboard of reports, I'm expecting to see leads, traffic, MQLs, SQLs, opportunities created, new collateral from the marketing team, and sales activity. A lot of that stuff kind of hard to make, some of it readily available, but you want to have the goal to create that stuff. Then your final agenda item should be, how do we adjust based on what's going on? Is sales maybe lagging behind for the month? Do they feel like they maybe need more leads? Well, we can convert our activity or our budget on marketing to maybe more fast generating lead activity like PPC. Does the sales team feel that they need a new piece of collateral that fits some kind of need for us? Well, marketing can add that to their agenda and create it. And then you just want to review that stuff with the intention of being, hey, you've given us this feedback that you don't think our leads are the best quality. Well, here's how we've defined MQL. Do you want to review that with us? As we review that data, you hope that you get actionable insights from it. If we need to review MQL definitions, sure, let's look at it. It becomes objective instead of being like, oh, those leads are kind of crappy, right?
Right. Definitely. That makes sense. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Evan, I had a question on that activities chart. You had showed like the average of 7 as an example.
Yeah.
Is that an actual date, not that specific number, but is that a data point that HubSpot uses as number of activities versus number of meetings or number of calls specifically?
So it is actually a general data point that we will look at is total number of activities, and we'll lump them together.
You don't weight them in any, like a task is equal to a meeting?
For that one, we were just looking at it like at a high level. I think though, as you're working with your sales team, like that's such a good question because yes, you do want to weight it. I don't think a task is worth a meeting.
Right.
I think you probably go meeting, call, task, right? Probably 3 points, 2 points, 1 point. Like that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because I knew that you guys, even just from reading Roberge's book years ago on the sales acceleration formula, where he talked about specific metrics around number of calls and when to make those calls and things like that. So I'd never looked at a data point from HubSpot where a task-based activity was actually weighted in a formula to decide if we were done with a lead yet or not. So just
that was an interesting point of data. I liked sharing it because I like to just kind of give people like a baseline, Yeah. Like I think a lot of times you'll hear us be like, oh, I don't know, it depends on your business and certainly these activities and so on. And that is 100% true. But like I like to just kind of give people a number to work on. That was from Morgan Jacobson's team on the e-commerce team. It was probably pulled a little more than a year ago at this point. Okay. But I thought it was interesting to think about just general activity. We look at activity in so much more detail now, breaking it down, meeting, calls, and tasks.
Yeah.
But I thought it was such a cool point of data just to see like, at 7, like it really did flatten out. I think the point on that one is like, drive for your own data to try to see if you can't get the more specifics in there. But
I like your approach though, of like having a number, because I agree too many times we all probably given presentations talking generalities, but even like the fatigue level within HubSpot, just the fact that there is a number and it moves from like low to medium to high to very high. It's like, yeah, they might be new, or yeah, it might've been two newsletters and 3 marketing, but at the end of the day, like you got to pick a number based on averages that gives you a good representation.
Yeah. And that's my biggest theme with like the sales and marketing meeting is I kind of try to say it a lot where I'm like, just plan the meeting and then like you'll figure out what data you're missing or what you need to adjust as it happens. But like, like what does the marketing or the sales manager think they should have for activity? Let's start there, go with your gut, and then let's try to make it more data driven as we figure out how to analyze it.
And then related to that too, Evan, we just had another question come through from Angela. She was asking about when having these alignment meetings, do you typically only include sales leaders or representation from the entire sales department for better buy-in?
Yeah, so actually in the deck, and I can send this out. There's a survey that they did of different businesses. I think it might have been like a Fortune 500 survey, but they talk about having sales and marketing meetings. They give the recommendation of, well, they give it through data saying that really successful businesses that see a lot of growth had them on average, I think 7 times a year. So every other month was a sales and marketing alignment meeting. And when we looked at the data, it was reviewing marketing managers and sales managers. So I think the concept is whomever is in charge of your sales number. Like in a small business, it's probably just going to be 1 or 2 people. It's like the owner. In larger businesses, I could certainly imagine it being maybe a group of sales managers or maybe the director of sales. Definitely at a higher level, talking about the activity of the individual contributors. So I don't imagine that having individual contributors included.
Perfect.
Evan, I have one more, just out of curiosity. So you said you've been there 7 years, back 2013. So were you there when Volpe was the CMO still? Were you, like in the early days?
I'm like trying to, Volpe was, yes, absolutely I was. Yes.
Okay, because I remember back in like 2011 to 2013 range, they used to have a Thursday evening marketing meeting.
Yes.
And it was like 5:30 every Thursday, and there'd be like 150 people in a room. Do they still do anything like that where you guys actually get the whole marketing and sales teams together, or at least large groups of them on a regular basis?
No, we actually really don't. The only time you see those groups get together anymore is for like our all hands meetings, like our team meetings. I think I might actually say, like, I think there was a lot of value in that we lost as we grew. You know, if you are a team that has, say, less than 100 people across sales and marketing, if you can get them all in a room, it can be incredibly valuable. Like, we lost that as we grew. And no, we don't do it anymore.
No, it's funny because the example you gave, I remember Volpe sitting there in the middle of a month showing a chart on the whiteboard saying, you know, sales needs these leads. We're going to launch this ebook in 2 days. And it was that exact scenario you just presented, you know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, HubSpot was doing that. So it's just interesting to hear. It's like, and I do think you're right. Like with these, if you have a smaller team, that idea of whether it's a weekly or a bi-weekly, where it truly is actionable information, looking at those data points and saying, what can we do in a 5-day period to actually affect the sales pipeline? And not many companies think that way, but it's certainly valuable if you can.
I feel like there's so much to be said about trying to do that. You know, like it's hard to affect a sales pipeline on that short term like that. But man, think about all the collateral, or the respect, or mutual respect that you get when your marketing team really tries to do something different based on how sales is, in this example, struggling. Yeah, huge.
Very true. Well, this was really helpful. Thank you so much, Evan, for leading the hug today. Hopefully next time we see you, it'll be in person. And thanks everyone for joining. Evan, do you have anything else you wanted to add, or are we all set?
No, I'll just say, like, I've thrown out my LinkedIn there. If anybody does want to connect with me or ask me questions, I'd be happy to help y'all. No question too small. And thanks again for having me. I'd love to see you guys in person. I can't wait to come out to Cleveland and see
Thank you, Evan.
I'll really look forward to that.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.